She orchestrated her own kidnapping, hired actors, staged a ritual, created the perfect trap to lure a creature she wasn't even sure existed. Mira Dunn, convicted hacker with nothing left to lose, bet everything on a desperate gamble. Blackmail a Nephilim into saving her from a life sentence. But the moment those black eyes fixed on her in that abandoned warehouse, the moment his voice cut through her carefully constructed lies like they were made of smoke, she realized she'd made a catastrophic mistake. He knew. He'd known from the second he walked in. And now she was alone with something that could kill her with a thought. Something that tasted lies on its tongue. Something that had just offered her a deal more dangerous than any prison sentence. Because Marcus Webb and his hunters weren't just planning to cleanse demons from the world. They were coming for children. 43 innocent kids in a hospital, marked for extermination by fanatics who believed mercy was weakness and salvation required fire. And the only thing standing between those children and a massacre was a partnership built on manipulation. A bond neither of them wanted. And a Nephilim fighting a war inside himself between angel light and demon darkness. Every second Cain spent near her, the more human he became. Every choice he made to protect her, the more his faction saw him as compromised. And when the blessed silver blade meant for her heart buried itself in his shoulder instead, when his blood, black threaded with gold, spilled because he'd chosen her over protocol, Mira understood with terrible clarity. She wasn't just risking her own life anymore. She was risking his soul. And the countdown to the cleansing had just begun. The knife pressed against her throat wasn't real. Mira knew, because she'd bought it herself 3 days ago from a Halloween store on 8th Avenue, dulled the blade with a metal file until it couldn't cut butter. The duct tape binding her wrists? Loose. Enough to slip free with one sharp twist. The abandoned warehouse at 2 a.m, candles arranged in a perfect pentagram, 5 hooded figures chanting in bastardized Latin, all hired through Craigslist, paid $200 each, given a script she'd written herself on her dying laptop. What was real? The electronic monitor cutting into her ankle like a shackle. The 3 years, 7 months, and 16 days left on her sentence. The desperation that tasted like copper in the back of her throat. And him. She felt him before she saw him. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in a heartbeat. The candles guttered, flames bending horizontal, as if some invisible hand pressed down on them. The air grew thick, wrong, like breathing through wet wool. Her fake captors stumbled back, their scripted chanting dying in their throats. One of them, a college kid who'd told her he needed rent money, actually pissed himself. The acrid smell cut through the theatrical incense. Mira's heart hammered against her ribs. This was the moment. This was what she'd spent 6 weeks researching, hacking into encrypted databases that should have been impossible to access, piecing together fragments of information that most people dismissed as internet conspiracy theories. Nephilim. Half angel, half demon. Real. Walking among humans in the shadows, hunting those who threatened to expose their world. The warehouse door didn't open. It exploded inward, metal shrieking as it tore from hinges that had held for 50 years. He stood in the doorway, backlit by the sickly orange glow of streetlights, and every instinct Mira possessed screamed at her to run. He was tall, maybe 6'3", wearing dark jeans and a black leather jacket that looked older than she was. But it was his eyes that locked her breath in her chest. Completely black. Not brown so dark they appeared black, but utterly void of color, of light, of anything remotely human. Shadows moved around him independently, writhing like living things, and when he stepped forward, the concrete cracked beneath his boots. "Get out." His voice was wrong. Too many tones layered over each other, as if 3 different people spoke simultaneously. The college kid ran first, followed immediately by the others, their footsteps echoing in panicked staccato as they fled into the night. Mira was alone with him. With it. With something her rational mind still struggled to accept as real. even as those impossible eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Please. She made her voice shake. Not difficult, given her heart was trying to escape her chest. Please help me. They were going to... He moved faster than anything living should move. One moment he stood by the door. The next he was inches from her face. Close enough that she could feel cold radiating from him like he'd swallowed winter whole. His hand wrapped around the knife at her throat. For one terrible second, she thought he'd actually cut her with the useless prop. Instead, he brought it to his face and examined it with an expression of such profound disgust that shame burned through her. Dollar store steel. His voice had shifted, less layered, more human, but dripping with contempt that cut deeper than any blade could. Duct tape from Home Depot still has the price tag. And this. He gestured at the pentagram with his free hand. The symbol is inverted. Any demon summoned by this wouldn't be bound. It would be invited. The warehouse. Tilted. Her carefully constructed plan, 6 weeks of preparation, every detail she'd obsessed over, crumbled to dust. He knew. He'd known from the moment he walked in. How? Her voice cracked. Real fear now, not performed. How did you? I can smell lies. He leaned closer, and she saw his eyes weren't completely black anymore. Flickers of amber sparked in the void like dying embers. They taste like ash on the back of my tongue. And you, Mira Dunn, age 26, convicted hacker, currently on house arrest for cyber theft, reek of them. The use of her name punched the air from her lungs. You know who I am. I know what you are. He released the knife, let it clatter to the concrete. But he didn't step back. His presence caged her more effectively than any restraints. The question is why? Why would a human with no supernatural awareness, no family connection to our world, no reason to believe we exist, orchestrate an elaborate fake kidnapping designed specifically to attract my attention, our world? The confirmation sent electricity racing down her spine despite the terror. He was real. All of it was real, and she'd just trapped herself in a warehouse with a creature that could probably kill her with a thought. I need help. The truth, finally. No script, no performance. Her throat tightened around the words. I made a mistake. A bad one. And I thought maybe you could blackmail a Nephilim into using magic to fix your human problems. Not a question. Statement, cold as his eyes had been. Maybe you could manipulate one of us into breaking cosmic law, risking exposure, condemning ourselves. Also, you could remove a monitoring device purchased by your own stupidity. Each word landed like a physical blow. Mira's carefully maintained cynicism cracked. My brother was dying. Leukemia. The insurance denied his treatment 3 times. 3. So yes, I broke into a bank system and I stole money from someone who wouldn't notice, and I'd do it. Again, because he's alive, and that matters more than your freedom? The amber in his eyes flickered brighter. Something shifted in his face, almost imperceptible. Then your safety? Then the fact that every criminal thinks their crime is justified? I'm not asking you to agree with what I did. Her hands shook despite her effort to steady them. I'm asking for help. I'll do whatever you need. Anything. I have skills. You can hack. He tilted his head, studying her with an expression that made her feel dissected. Break into secure systems. Access information most people can't touch. Including, apparently, the Codex files. The Codex. The encrypted database she'd found buried in layers of government security that shouldn't exist. The files that had proven to her that monsters were real, that they had rules, that they policed themselves. The files that had given her his name. Cain. I found records. Her mouth had gone desert dry. Hunters. Humans who expose supernatural beings. Your faction tracks them, eliminates them. We enforce the masquerade. His voice had gone flat, emotionless, scarier than anger. Humans who threaten to reveal our existence are dealt with. Permanently. The weight of that word, permanently, settled on her chest like a stone. I know where they are. The hunters. I've been tracking their communications for weeks. They're planning something, I don't know what, but it's big. And I can give you everything. Silence. The kind that pressed against her eardrums, that made her aware of every breath, every heartbeat, every second that he could decide she was more trouble than she was worth. Then, impossibly, he smiled. It was not a kind smile. You orchestrated a fake ritual sacrifice, hired actors, committed multiple felonies, all to blackmail me into removing your ankle monitor. And now you're offering to betray humans who hunt my kind in exchange for that favor. Yes. No point in lying. He could taste them anyway. His hand moved. She flinched, but he didn't strike her. Instead, his fingers circled her wrist, right over the pulse point that hammered against her skin. His touch was ice cold, and something electric passed between them, something that made her gasp despite herself. You're either the bravest human I've met in 3 centuries, he said softly, those amber sparks dancing in black eyes, or the most suicidal. I haven't decided which. Is there a third option? The question escaped before she could stop it. His smile widened fractionally. Still not kind, but something else flickered there. Intrigue, maybe. Yes, you work for me. Track the hunters using those criminal skills you're so proud of. Feed me information. And if you prove useful, if you don't betray me the way you betrayed your own kind, I'll consider your request. Consider. The word tasted bitter. I'm not human, Mira. I don't make promises I might not keep. He released her wrist, but the cold remained, branded into her. Skin. But I am curious. And curiosity, for something like me, is rare enough to be valuable. He turned to leave, shadows already gathering around him like a cloak. Mira's voice caught him at the door. Why didn't you kill me? Protocol says humans who know about you die. He glanced back. In the dying candlelight, his eyes had shifted again. Almost human. Almost. Because you're the first one in decades who didn't scream. The coffee shop smelled like burned espresso and broken dreams. Mira had been sitting in the corner booth for 47 minutes, laptop open, pretending to work on a freelance web design project that didn't exist. Her parole officer thought she was here applying for jobs. The ankle monitor's GPS confirmed her location, blinking its steady approval of her compliance. She was actually hacking into the private server of a man who called himself Shepherd Online. Real name: Marcus Webb, former Marine, current fanatic who believed demons walked among humans and needed to be purged with holy fire. His communications painted a picture of organized hunting parties, weapons caches, and something he kept referring to as the cleansing. Scheduled for 3 weeks from now. Location still encrypted. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text contained only an address and a time. Midnight. Tonight. Mira's finger hovered over the delete button. She should ignore it. Should pack up, go back to her studio apartment, spend the night watching old movies and pretending the last 72 hours hadn't happened. That she hadn't seen those black eyes, felt that impossible cold, heard that voice with too many tones. She typed back, "I'll be there." The response came immediately. "Bring everything you found. Come alone. If I sense surveillance, you won't see me coming." Her hands shook as she closed the laptop. This was insane. Meeting a Nephilim in the middle of the night, bringing him intelligence on human targets he would probably kill. She was crossing a line that had no return path, choosing a side in a war she'd barely understood existed a week ago. But the alternative was 3 more years of this electronic shackle. 3 more years of checking in, of restricted movement, of living in a cage made of invisible walls. She'd survived prison. She wasn't sure she could survive this slower suffocation. The address led to a closed bookstore, in a neighborhood where streetlights flickered more than they shone. Mira arrived 15 minutes early, circling the block twice, checking for anything unusual. The irony wasn't lost on her that she had no idea what unusual would even look like in this context. At midnight exactly, the bookstore's back door opened. Not from the inside. It simply swung inward, as if the lock had ceased to care about its purpose. Cain stood in the darkness beyond, and this time Mira could see him clearly. The shadows around him had calmed, no longer writhing but settling like a second skin. His eyes were amber now, almost human, except for the way they reflected light like an animal's. He wore the same leather jacket, but she noticed details she'd missed in her terror. The way he stood too still, like someone who'd forgotten humans were supposed to fidget. The way his chest barely moved, as if breathing was optional. "You actually came." He sounded surprised. Most humans run after the first meeting, convince themselves they imagined it. Shared hallucination, gas leak. "I'm not most humans." Mira stepped inside, and the door closed behind her with a finality that made her pulse spike. The bookstore was empty, shelves stripped bare, but the smell of old paper lingered like a ghost. "No." His gaze tracked her with predatory focus. "You're not." He gestured to a table that hadn't been there a moment ago. On it sat 2 cups of coffee, still steaming. "Sit." She eyed the coffee suspiciously. "Did you just manifest furniture and beverages?" "I stopped at Starbucks." Was that humor in his voice? Despite popular belief, we're not completely detached from human convenience. Though I don't drink it myself. Tastes like dirt to me. Mira sat, opened her laptop, pulled up her files. Marcus Webb, former Marine, dishonorably discharged for religious extremism, which apparently means he tried to exorcise his commanding officer. Runs a network of 37 confirmed hunters across 7 states. They call themselves the Righteous Sword. She rotated the screen. This is their communication hub. Encrypted, but not well enough. Cain leaned over her shoulder, close enough that she felt the cold radiating from him, close enough to see the veins in his neck darkening like ink spreading through water. The cleansing. What is it? Mass attack. Coordinated strikes on locations they believe harbor demonic entities. I've identified 12 potential targets so far. Churches, community centers, a children's hospital. Her voice tightened on the last one. They think demons hide among the vulnerable. His hand slammed down on the table. The wood cracked. Coffee spilled, and Mira jerked back, heart hammering. When she looked up, his eyes had gone black again, completely void, and the temperature had dropped 20 degrees. Children. The word came out layered, that triple voice from the warehouse. They would murder children on suspicion. They call it salvation. Mira's breath misted in the sudden cold, cleansing the innocent before demons can take root. The shadows around. Him exploded outward, tendrils of darkness that ate the light, that made the bookstore feel like a tomb. Mira's instinct screamed at her to run, but she forced herself still. This was what he was. Not the almost human facade with amber eyes and coffee cups. This seething darkness. This barely contained violence. "You're afraid." His voice had gone soft, dangerous. "I can hear your heartbeat, smell the adrenaline." Yes. No point lying. He'd taste it anyway. Something shifted in his expression. The shadows retracted slowly, reluctantly, like dogs called to heel. His eyes flickered, black to amber and back, a visible war playing out across his face. When he spoke again, his voice was singular, strained. "Good. You should be. What I want to do to these hunters isn't justice. It's rage. And my demon half is very persuasive about which one I should choose." The honesty surprised her. "Which half is winning? Right now?" He looked at her. Really looked. And for a moment she saw something. Ancient and exhausted behind those shifting eyes. "Whichever one thinks you're worth keeping alive to help me stop them." It should have sounded like a threat. Instead, it sounded like hope. Mira pulled up another file. Webb's planning meeting is in 5 days. Warehouse in Red Hook. I can get you the exact coordinates, access codes, attendee list, everything. She met his eyes, amber now, almost gentle. But I need something from you first. The monitor. He glanced at her ankle. That's your price for 37 lives. That's my price for becoming a traitor to my own species. The words came out harsher than intended. I'm not naive. I know what you'll do to them, what you have to do, and I'm giving you the tools to do it. So, yes, I want something in return for selling my soul. Silence. Then, impossibly, he laughed. It was a rough sound, like someone who'd forgotten how. Selling your soul requires a demon, not a Nephilim. We don't have that authority. He moved closer, crouched down beside her chair until they were eye level. But I'll make you a deal. You help me stop the cleansing. Save those children. Give me Webb and his inner circle. Do that, and I'll remove your shackle. How do I know you'll keep your word? His hand reached out, and she forced herself not to flinch. His fingers wrapped around her wrist again, that same pulse point, that same electric cold. But this time, something else happened. A warmth bloomed beneath the ice, spreading up her arm, like liquid light, and she gasped. That's a binding. His voice was quiet, intimate. Not supernatural, just my word. But it's more than I've given anyone in 200 years. Break your end, and it fades. Keep it, and so will I. Mira looked down at her wrist. Nothing visible had changed, but she could feel it. A connection, gossamer thin, threading between her pulse and his cold touch. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why trust me at all? I'm a criminal who tried to manipulate you. His smile was slight, but real. Because you're honest about being dishonest. Because you chose your brother over your freedom, which means you understand sacrifice. And because... He paused, something vulnerable crossing his features. You're the first human in decades who looked at me and saw a person making a choice, not a monster following nature. The weight of that statement settled between them, heavy and fragile. 5 days. Mira's voice came out rougher than intended. I'll have everything you need. 5 days. He stood, offered his hand to help her up. She took it. Ice and lightning, cold and warmth, wrong and right all at once. As she walked toward the door, he called out, Mira, those hunters, they're not wrong about one thing. She turned back. What? His eyes had gone completely black again, but this time it didn't terrify her. I am dangerous. Remember that. The surveillance footage from Webb's compound played on loop on Mira's laptop, grainy and damning. 3 days until the meeting. 72 hours until she handed over information that would likely end in blood. She'd barely slept, surviving on gas station coffee and the kind of guilt that sat in her stomach like broken glass. Her apartment door opened without a knock. No broken lock, no forced entry. It simply swung inward as if the mechanism had forgotten its purpose. Mira's hand flew to the pepper spray on her desk, then froze. Kane stood in her doorway, and for the first time, she saw him in daylight filtering through her blinds. It made him look almost normal. Almost. The shadows still clung to him like they were sewn into his clothes, and his eyes were that amber color that was never quite human, but he could have passed on the street. Could have been just another guy in worn jeans and a dark shirt, except for the way her plants had wilted the moment he crossed the threshold. You need to learn how to knock. She closed the laptop, heart still racing from the adrenaline spike. Breaking and entering is kind of my thing. Professional courtesy. Your door was unlocked. He moved through her apartment with careful precision, like someone cataloging every detail. His gaze lingered on the photos stuck to her fridge with magnets. Her brother, healthy now, grinning at a baseball game. You're not taking basic precautions. Anyone could walk in. Anyone just did. She stood, putting the desk between them. Not that furniture would stop him, but it made her feel less exposed. What are you doing here? The meeting isn't for 3 more days. Webb moved it up. Tonight, 11 p.m. His eyes fixed on her, and she saw something there that looked almost like concern. They know someone's been in their system. They're not sure who or how much was compromised, but they're accelerating the timeline. The cleansing happens in 48 hours now, not 3 weeks. The room tilted. That's not enough time. We need to go. Now. He crossed her in 2 strides, and she smelled ozone and something else, something like frost on stone. Pack what you need. You can't stay here. If they trace the hacks back to you, and they will eventually, this address becomes a target. I can't just leave. I have a monitoring device, remember? I go more than 3 blocks from this apartment and I violate parole. She gestured at her ankle. They'll send cops. Maybe worse. Then I remove it now. His voice was flat, final. Consider it an advance on our deal. You're no good to me, dead or arrested. He knelt before she could protest, his hands moving to the monitor. The moment his fingers touched the device, she felt it again. That electric cold, that sensation of wrongness and rightness colliding. The monitor's red light flickered, dimmed, then died. The band opened with a soft click. Mira stared at her bare ankle. 3 years, 7 months, and 13 days had just evaporated. Freedom, except she'd traded 1 shackle for something infinitely more binding. Why? The question came out barely above a whisper. Why advance the payment? You don't have what you need yet. Kane stood, and in the afternoon light she could see his veins darkening beneath his skin, black spreading like cracks in ice. Because 37 hunters planning to murder children matters more than my insurance policy. Because... He paused, jaw tightening. Because you remind me that humans aren't all the same. And I need that reminder right now. Wow. Vulnerability in his voice made her chest tight. She packed quickly. Laptop, external drives, changes of clothes, the photo of her brother. When she turned back, Kane was examining her bookshelf, his fingers tracing the spine of a battered copy of East of Eden. Steinbeck. He pulled it out, flipped through pages that she'd annotated heavily in the margins. You've read this multiple times. It's about choice versus destiny, whether we're defined by our nature or our decisions. She shouldered. Her backpack. Seemed relevant to my life lately. His thumb stopped on a passage she'd underlined 3 times. Timshel, thou mayest. The idea that we can choose to overcome our nature. His voice had gone quiet, distant. My father believed that once. That his angel blood could override his choices. That righteousness was inherent. He closed the book carefully, set it back. He was wrong. He chose cruelty disguised as salvation, and his divine nature didn't stop him. The pain in those words was so raw that Mira found herself moving closer without thinking. What happened to him? I killed him when I was 12. Kane met her eyes, and the amber had gone dark, almost brown. Human. He was trying to purify me, burn the demon out with blessed silver and prayers. I lost control and the demon half won. I've spent 2 centuries trying to prove that wasn't my only choice. The confession hung between them, heavy and irreversible. Mira should have been terrified, should have run. Instead, she reached out and touched his arm. He flinched like she'd struck him. You're choosing now. Her voice was steady despite the chaos in her chest. Stopping Webb, protecting those kids. That's not your demon half-talking, isn't it? He looked at where her hand rested on his forearm. The things I want to do to those hunters aren't righteous. I want them to suffer. Want them to feel every ounce of terror their victims would have felt. That's not angel justice. That's demon vengeance. Maybe it's both. She didn't move her hand. Maybe that's what makes you dangerous. Not that you're half demon, but that you're fully both. Angel and demon, justice and rage, and you have to choose every single time which one wins. He stared at her for a long moment, and she watched the war play out across his features. The veins in his neck darkening, then lightening. Shadows gathering, then retreating. Eyes shifting black to amber and back. Finally, he spoke. We need to go. I have a safe house. You'll work from there. The safe house was a loft in an industrial area that looked abandoned from the outside. Inside, it was sparse but functional. Concrete floors, minimal furniture, banks of servers and equipment that looked military grade. The windows were covered with blackout curtains, and symbols were carved into the doorframe. Protection wards, she realized, to keep things out. Or in. Mira set up her equipment on the single table, pulling up the surveillance feeds she'd been monitoring. Cain moved through the space like a caged animal, restless energy crackling around him. Tell me about the meeting tonight. She connected to the compound security system through a back door she'd installed days ago. Who's attending? Webb and his inner circle. 7 total, including him. They'll finalize targets, distribute weapons, coordinate timing. He stopped behind her chair, close enough that she felt the cold. I'll be there, in the shadows, recording everything, building. A case for my faction, that this requires elimination, not just monitoring. You need permission to kill them. It wasn't a question. I need justification. We have laws, same as you. I can't execute humans without proof of imminent supernatural threat. His hand gripped the back of her chair, which is where you come in. I need you to access Webb's personal files during the meeting. He keeps records, proof of past kills, supernatural victims. If I can show he's already murdered our kind, the cleansing becomes continuation of pattern. That's justification. Mira's fingers hovered over the keyboard. You want me to come with you? To the meeting. I need your skills on site. Their security is hardwired, no remote access to the inner files. You'd have to physically breach their system. He moved around to face her, crouched down to eye level. I know what I'm asking. I know the risk. But I can't do this without you. The fear was there, cold and rational. But beneath it, something else. Burned. The memory of those target locations, the children's hospital, the community center where her brother volunteered on weekends. If I do this, if I help you kill them, her voice cracked. Does that make me a murderer too? Cain's hand covered hers, ice and electricity. It makes you someone who chose which lives matter more, innocents or fanatics. There's no clean answer, Mira. There never is. She thought of her brother, alive because she'd stolen. Of the children who'd die if Webb's cleansing succeeded. Of the impossible creature in front of her, fighting his own nature every second to choose something better than rage. Okay. The word came out steady. I'll do it. But Cain... She met his eyes, amber now, almost warm. Don't let your demon half take over completely. Those hunters are monsters. But if you become one too, what was the point? Something shifted in his expression. Soft, vulnerable, devastating. You think I can choose to be better? I think you already are. She squeezed his hand, cold meeting warm. You just don't believe it yet. He stood abruptly, turned away, but not before she saw the veins in his neck flash gold. Angel light, fighting the darkness. We leave in 4 hours. His voice was rough. Get some rest. Tonight changes everything. The compound sat like a wound in the industrial district, surrounded by chain-link fence, and the kind of silence that came from places where hope went to die. Mira crouched in the shadows beside Cain, her laptop balanced on her knees, watching 7 men file into the main building through thermal imaging. Her heart hammered so hard she was certain he could hear it. Breathe. His voice was barely a whisper, but it filled her skull like he'd spoken directly into her mind. Panic makes you sloppy. Easy for you to say. You're bulletproof." She adjusted the earpiece he'd given her. Military grade, encrypted. "I'm extremely vulnerable to holes in my body. You won't get shot." He materialized a knife from somewhere, the blade darker than the night around them. Not steel. Something else. "Because you'll be with me every second. I won't let anything happen to you." The certainty in his voice shouldn't have been comforting, given what he was, but warmth bloomed in her chest anyway. She blamed adrenaline. They moved toward the fence. Cain didn't cut it or climb it. The metal simply parted for him like water, molecules forgetting their bonds, and Mira slipped through behind him. The moment. They crossed the threshold. The temperature dropped. Her breath misted, and frost spread across the dead grass beneath their feet. "You're doing that." She kept her voice low. "The cold. Demon manifestation. Harder to control when I'm hunting." His eyes had gone completely black. No amber left. The shadows around him had thickened, become almost solid. "Stay close. They have wards. Primitive. But they'll sense supernatural presence." They reached the building's side wall. Mira pulled out a small device, pressed it against the concrete. The security panel inside flickered on her screen. 12 seconds to bypass. 8, 5. The lock clicked open. Inside smelled like gun oil and fanaticism. The hallway was narrow, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Voices echoed from deeper in the building, male and aggressive. Webb's voice rose above the others, preaching about divine duty and necessary sacrifice. Cain's hand found the small of her back, guiding her toward a side room. The server room, according to the schematics she'd memorized. The door was locked, but he touched it, and the mechanism simply died. They slipped inside, and Mira immediately went to work. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing firewalls that were honestly insulting in their simplicity. Webb's personal files unfolded across her screen. Targets, dates, photographs that made her stomach turn. Bodies burned beyond recognition. Crime scenes labeled as gas leaks or electrical fires. And names. 23 confirmed kills over 7 years. All supernatural. 2 were children. Got it. She uploaded everything to an encrypted server, hands shaking. Evidence of 23 murders. He documented everything. Photos, locations, even trophies. Her voice cracked. He kept their ashes in jars. Cain moved behind her, looking over her shoulder at the screen. The cold intensified until ice crystals formed on the monitor. When he spoke, his voice was layered again, triple-toned. Barely. Human. Children. 2 confirmed, others suspected but unproven. Mira's throat tightened. "Cain, your veins." She looked up and immediately wished she hadn't. The veins in his neck and face had gone completely black, spreading like cracks across porcelain. His eyes were voids, and the shadows around him had begun moving independently, reaching, grasping. The demon half wasn't just present, it was winning. "Cain!" She stood, put herself between him and the door. "I need you here, present, not lost to rage. They murdered children." The words came out wrong, distorted. Burned them alive because they were different, because they were born wrong. "I know." She reached up, touched his face despite every instinct screaming at her to run. His skin was ice, but she didn't pull away. "I know it's evil. I know you want to tear them apart. But you promised me you'd choose. Angel or demon. Justice or vengeance. Choose." His hand caught her wrist, grip bruising. For a terrible second, she thought he'd crush the bones. Then warmth flooded through the ice. Gold light traced through the black veins, fighting, pushing back. His eyes flickered, black to amber and back, a visible war. "Get behind me." His voice was singular again, strained. "They're coming." Footsteps in the hallway, rapid and purposeful. Someone had tripped an alarm she hadn't seen. The door burst open and 3 hunters stood there, weapons raised. Not guns, Blessed silver, holy water, implements designed to hurt. Things like Cain. He moved faster than her eyes could track. One moment he was beside her, the next he was a blur of shadows and violence. The first hunter went down without firing a shot, unconscious before he hit the ground. The second managed to squeeze his trigger, holy water spraying in an arc. It hit Cain in the chest and he screamed. Not pain, rage. The sound was inhuman, layered with harmonics that made Mira's teeth ache. His skin where the water touched had begun to smoke, blackening. But he didn't stop. He slammed into the second hunter with enough force to crack the wall behind him. The third hunter turned his weapon on Mira. Time crystallized. She saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw the blessed silver blade designed to punch through flesh, saw her death coming in slow motion. Cain appeared between them. The blade meant for her chest buried itself in his shoulder instead, and she watched in horror as his flesh sizzled around the blessed metal. He didn't even flinch. His hand closed around the hunter's throat, lifting him off the ground. No. Mira grabbed Cain's arm. Don't kill him. Please. We have what we need. We can go. He tried to kill you. The words were barely English. He would have murdered you without hesitation. I know. But you're not him. She pulled harder, knowing it was useless. Knowing he could ignore her completely. You're choosing, remember? Be better than them. The hunter's face was turning purple. Cain's grip tightened. Then, slowly, impossibly, loosened. He dropped the man, who collapsed, gasping. Cain turned to her, and his eyes were amber again, fully human, filled with something that looked like anguish. We need to leave. Now. He pulled the blessed silver from his shoulder with a wet sound that made Mira gag. The wound smoked, but was already closing. More are coming. They ran. The hallway was chaos, alarms screaming, more hunters pouring from the meeting room. Cain grabbed her hand and shadows exploded around. Them. Thick and blinding. She felt movement, impossible speed, her feet barely touching ground. Then they were outside, past the fence, into his car that appeared from nowhere. He drove with one hand, the other pressed to his shoulder where blood seeped between his fingers. Not red. Something darker, with threads of gold running through it. You're hurt. Mira's hands shook as she pulled off her jacket, pressed it to his wound. How bad? Blessed silver burns slow. I'll heal. Takes longer than normal injuries. He glanced at her, and she saw pain there, raw and real. You saved him. That hunter. Why? Because you needed to prove you could choose. She kept pressure on the wound, feeling his blood, warm and cold simultaneously, soak through the fabric. Because you're not a monster, Cain. You're someone fighting not to be. His free hand covered hers, and she felt that electric connection again, stronger now. The binding he'd made, she realized. It had grown, strengthened, become something neither of them had anticipated. That blade was meant for your heart. His voice was rough. If I'd been a second slower, but you weren't. She squeezed his hand. You saved me. You chose me over your rage. That means something. They drove in silence until they reached the safe house. Inside, Mira helped him to the single couch, pulled away his jacket and shirt. The wound was deep, still smoking faintly, but healing visibly. She watched as flesh knit itself together. Black blood, mixing with gold light. Does it hurt? She found herself unable to look away from the display of his dual nature, working in tandem to heal him. Everything about existing hurts. He leaned his head back, closed his eyes. 200 years of war between angel and demon, light and dark. Every second is a choice not to let one consume the other. Tonight, in that building, I almost lost. But you didn't. She found medical supplies, began cleaning the edges of the wound even though it was healing on its own. She needed to do something with her hands. You pulled back. Because of you. His eyes opened, amber and intense. Your hand on my face. Your voice. You anchored me when nothing else could. The weight of that confession settled between them. Heavy with implications neither was ready to examine. Mira focused on the wound, on the practical, on anything but the way her heart had started racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. We have the evidence. Her voice came out too soft. Webb's kills, 23 victims. Your faction has to act now. They will. His hand caught hers, stilling her movements. Which means what comes next will be bloody. Are you ready for that? She met his eyes. Are you? His smile was sad, tired, and devastatingly human. No, but I'll choose it anyway. Dawn broke through the blackout curtains in thin slices of gold, and Mira woke on the couch with Kane's jacket draped over her like a blanket. He sat across the room at the table, shirtless, the wound on his shoulder now just a silver scar that caught the light. He was reading her annotated copy of East of Eden, the one she'd packed without thinking. You're staring at my notes. Her voice came out rough with sleep. Judging my interpretation of biblical allegory. Relating to it. He closed the book carefully, and she noticed his hands were steady now. No tremors from the blessed silver poisoning. You wrote in the margin here, next to the Cain and Abel story. Maybe the mark wasn't punishment. Maybe it was protection. Maybe God was saying you can choose differently next time. Heat crept up her neck. Those notes were private, written during her darkest days in prison when she'd needed to believe people could be more than their worst choices. It's just a theory. It's hope. He stood, moved to the window, careful to stay in the shadows. Something I haven't let myself feel in a very long time. He turned to face her, and the morning light caught. His eyes, making them almost human. Almost. The Faction Council reviewed the evidence last night. They've authorized elimination. Webb and his inner circle. 48 hours to execute before the cleansing. The words should have brought relief. Instead, they sat heavy in her chest. You're going to kill them. I'm going to stop them. Permanently. His jaw tightened. But there's a complication. During the breach last night, Webb got a partial image from the security feed before I destroyed. The servers. Grainy, but enough. He knows a woman was with me. 5'4", dark hair, late 20s. He's already distributed your description to his network. Ice flooded her veins. He's hunting me. We're hunting each other. Kane crossed to her in 3 strides, crouched down until they were eye level. Which means you can't leave this safe house. You're a target now, and not just from hunters. My faction knows you exist. They'll want to question you, determine if you're compromised. If you're a liability. Liability. The word tasted bitter. You mean they'll want to kill me too? His silence was answer enough. Mira stood, paced to the window, careful to avoid the light. Below, the city moved, oblivious. People going to work, buying coffee, living normal lives where the monsters were metaphorical. So I traded one prison for another. At least the ankle monitor let me pretend I had choices. You have a choice now. His voice was quiet behind her. I can take you somewhere. Safe. Far from here. New identity, new life. You'd never see me again. Never be part of this world. You'd be free. She turned, studied his face. The offer was genuine. She could see it in the way his eyes had gone soft, vulnerable. And Webb? The cleansing? I'll handle it. That was always the plan. He moved closer, and she felt the cold radiating from him. Familiar now. Almost comforting. You've done enough. More than enough. You don't owe me anything else. Except I do. The words surprised her, but once spoken, she knew they were true. Those kids in the hospital, the people at the community center. I gave you the intel that makes stopping this possible. If I run now, if I hide while you finish this alone, I'm just another person who looked away when it mattered. This isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment I hacked into that database. The moment I lured you to that warehouse." She closed the distance between them, ignoring the way her breath misted in his presence. "I made this choice, Cain. Let me see it through." Something fierce and painful crossed his features. "You could die. My faction, the hunters, any number of things in this world that would see a human with knowledge of us as a threat. I can't protect you from everything. I'm not asking you to." She reached up, touched the scar on his shoulder, the mark of blessed silver that had been meant for her heart. "You took a blade for me. Let me stand beside you now, not behind you. Beside you." His hand covered hers, pressing her palm flat against his chest. Beneath her fingers, his heart beat too slow, too steady, not quite human. "If you stay, everything changes. There's no going back to normal life. You'll be marked, known. My faction will monitor you forever. Some may always see you as a threat. Then I'll deal with it." Her voice was steady despite the fear curling in her gut. "Together. That's the deal, right? We stop Webb together. Whatever comes after, we face it. Together." The word "together" seemed to break something in him. He pulled her close, so fast she gasped, his arms wrapping around her with a desperation that spoke of centuries of isolation. His skin was ice against hers, but she didn't pull away. She leaned in, felt his chest rise and fall in an approximation of breathing he didn't really need. "I don't know how to do this." The confession was muffled against her hair. Be close to someone. Trust someone. 200 years alone makes you forget. "How?" "Then we'll figure it out together." She pulled back enough to see his face. "That's what together means." His eyes had shifted, amber bright with threads of gold she'd never seen before. Angel light, she realized. Not just the demon darkness. Both halves. Present. Balanced. "You terrify me, Miradun. More than blessed silver. More than my faction. Because you make me want things I thought I'd buried." "Like what?" "Like hope. Like redemption. Like..." He stopped, jaw working. And she watched the war play out across his features. Whatever he'd been about to say, he swallowed it. "We should eat. You need food. I forget humans require that." The deflection was obvious, but she let it pass. They'd crossed enough boundaries for one morning. She moved to the small kitchen area, found instant oatmeal and bottled water. As she cooked, Cain explained the plan. "Webb's final planning session is tomorrow night. Same compound, heavier security. He'll have all 7 members of his inner circle present, finalizing last details before the cleansing." He pulled up a holographic display from a device on his wrist, and Mira tried not to gape at the casual display of technology that shouldn't exist. "My faction is sending backup. 3 other Nephilim. We'll breach simultaneously from 4 points. Contain them. Execute the authorization." Execute. The word sat heavy on her tongue. "You say it so clinically. Would you prefer I dress it up? Call it justice? Retribution?" His voice had gone flat. "They're kills, Mira. Necessary, authorized, but still kills. I won't pretend otherwise." She set down the spoon, turned to face him fully. "Will you make them suffer? The way your demon half wants to?" The question hung between them, sharp and unavoidable. Cain's hands clenched on the table edge, knuckles going white. "Yes, part of me wants to. Wants them to feel terror, pain, helplessness, everything their victims felt." He met her eyes. "But I won't. Because you ask me to. Choose. Because mercy, even for monsters, is what separates me from them." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet." He stood, moved to the weapons cache along the wall, began checking firearms with professional efficiency. "Tomorrow will be violent, bloody. You'll see me at my worst. See what I'm truly capable of when unleashed. And you might not be able to look at me the same way after." Mira crossed to him, took the gun from his hands, set it aside. "I've seen you, Cain. The black eyes, the shadows, the barely controlled violence. I've seen you almost lose yourself to rage, and I'm still here." She placed her hand over his heart again, felt that too slow beat. "Whatever tomorrow brings, I'm not going anywhere." His hand covered hers, and she felt the binding between them pulse, strengthen. "Not supernatural," he'd said. Just his word. But it felt like more now. Felt like a lifeline neither of them had known they needed. "If something happens to me tomorrow," he said quietly, "if it goes wrong and I don't make it out, there's a safe deposit box at First National. Key is taped under the table. Inside is money, documents, everything you need to disappear. Promise me you'll use it. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me." His grip tightened. "Please." The desperation in his voice made her chest ache. "I promise. But only if you promise the same. If something happens to me, you don't let it break you. You keep choosing, keep being better." His smile was sad, fragile. "That's a harder promise." "I know." She squeezed his hand. "Make it anyway. I promise." He pulled her close again, and this time she felt him trembling. Not from cold or power, but something more human. Fear. "You've become important to me. More than I intended. More than is probably wise." Same. The admission came easier than it should have. Somewhere between the fake ritual and the blessed silver, you stopped being a means to an end and became a person. He finished, voice rough. "Someone you care about." "Yes." She looked up at him, saw her reflection in those amber eyes. "Is that allowed? In your world? Human and Nephilim?" "No." The word was absolute. "It's forbidden. Considered contamination. If my faction knew I'd developed attachment to you, they'd remove you. Permanently. Then we don't tell them." She said it with more confidence than she felt. "After tomorrow, after Webb is handled, we figure out the rest. One impossible problem at a time." His laugh was quiet, disbelieving. "You're either the bravest human I've ever met or completely insane. Can it be both?" He kissed her forehead, and the cold of his lips against her skin felt like a brand. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, everything changes." The other 3 Nephilim arrived at dusk, and Mira understood immediately why humans feared them. They materialized in the safe house without opening doors, without sound, just sudden presence where emptiness had been. The temperature plummeted 20 degrees in seconds. The first was female, tall and severe, with eyes that shifted between silver and black like oil on water. She looked at Mira the way someone might examine a stain. This is the human, not a question, an accusation. Her name is Mira. Cain moved between them, subtle but protective. She provided the intelligence. Without her, we wouldn't have authorization. Without her, we wouldn't need it. The woman circled Mira like a predator. Humans always complicate things. They see what they shouldn't, ask questions that endanger us all, then wonder why we have protocols about witnesses. "Sariel." Cain's voice carried warning. "She's under my protection. Council approved her involvement. Council approved her usefulness." Sariel stopped inches from Mira, close enough that frost formed on Mira's jacket. "Once this is finished, that protection expires. Remember that, human." The second Nephilim was massive, easily 6.5 feet, with shoulders that belonged on a linebacker. His eyes were solid gold, no pupil, no iris, just metallic gleam. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Enough. We have 4 hours until breach. Save the territorial posturing for the enemy." He nodded at Mira. "I'm Raphael. You did good work uncovering Webb's kills. My sister was one of his victims, 3 years ago. Burned alive in her sleep." The grief in his voice was so raw that Mira's throat tightened. "I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Help us end him." Raphael moved to the weapons cache, began selecting gear with practiced efficiency. "You're staying here during the operation, correct?" "No." Mira and Cain spoke simultaneously. The other Nephilim turned as one, regarding them with expressions ranging from surprise to disgust. The third Nephilim, who'd been silent until now, laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. He was younger looking than the others, maybe 18 in appearance, with eyes that swirled like smoke. "Oh, this is rich." Cain's developed an attachment. I can smell it on both of you. Desperation and bad decisions. Azrael. Cain's voice had gone dangerous. Watch yourself. Or what? You'll choose the human over the mission? Over centuries of protocol? Azrael moved closer to Cain, confrontational. She's made you weak, sentimental. The demon side, I understand. It craves connection like an addiction. But your angel half should know better. Cain's eyes went completely black. Shadows exploded around him, and the air pressure dropped so fast Mira's ears popped. My angel half knows that she's the reason we have the evidence. My demon half knows she's worth protecting. Both agree that if you threaten her again, faction politics won't save you. The two Nephilim faced off, power crackling between them like static electricity. Mira's instinct screamed at her to run, but she forced herself still. This was Cain's world. These were his people. She couldn't show weakness. Sariel stepped between them. Enough. Both of you. She looked at Cain with something almost like pity. Your attachment to her is obvious and problematic. But Azrael's right about one thing. Bringing her into active combat is suicide. For her and potentially for us if we're distracted protecting her. I don't need protection. Mira's voice came out steadier than she felt. I can handle myself. Against 7 armed hunters in a fortified compound? Sariel's smile was sharp. You're human, fragile. 1 bullet, 1 blade, 1 mistake, and you're dead. We heal from catastrophic injury. You don't. She stays. Raphael's voice cut through the tension. In the command vehicle, remote access to their systems, real-time intelligence, emergency extraction if needed. She's not frontline, but she's useful. That's the compromise. Cain looked at Mira, and she saw the war in his eyes. Protection versus respect. Fear versus trust. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. But she's wired to my comm at all times. Any sign of trouble, I'm pulling out. That's not how this works. Azrael's voice dripped contempt. We can't abort an authorized elimination because you're worried about your pet human. Cain moved faster than Mira's eyes could track. 1 second he was across the room. The next his hand was around Azrael's throat, lifting him off the ground. Call her that again. I dare you. Azrael's smoke eyes flickered, and shadows rose to meet Cain's. The two of them locked in a silent struggle, power against power. Darkness against darkness. The walls began to crack. Enough. Raphael's voice was a physical force that slammed both of them apart. We're hunting human fanatics, not each other. Save your violence for the enemy. He looked at Cain. You're compromised. We all see it. But you're also the best tracker we have. And this is personal for all of us. So we table this discussion until after. Understood? Cain nodded stiffly. Jaw clenched so hard Mira could see veins darkening in his neck. Azrael straightened. His jacket glared at both of them and moved to the opposite side of the room. Sariel approached Mira, her expression unreadable. You care about him. It's written all over you. Fear and attraction and something deeper you probably haven't named yet. She leaned closer, and Mira smelled winter and old stone. But understand this, human. What you feel doesn't matter. What he feels doesn't matter. We exist outside your mortal concerns. When this is over, the Council will evaluate whether your continued existence poses a security risk. If they decide you know too much, Cain's protection won't save you. He'll be ordered to eliminate you himself. The words hit like physical blows. He wouldn't. He would. Sariel's smile was pitying. Because that's what we are. Duty before desire. Protocol before person. He's had 2 centuries to learn that lesson. One human, however compelling, won't undo that training. She walked away, leaving Mira standing alone, cold seeping into her bones. Across the room, Kane was studying tactical maps with Raphael, his expression locked down, professional. Had she been naive, thinking this connection between them meant something? That he'd choose her if it came down to it? As if sensing her thoughts, Kane looked up. Their eyes met across the space, and something passed between them. Not the binding, which she could feel pulsing at her wrist like a second heartbeat. Something else. A question and an answer, and a promise all at once. He crossed. To her, ignoring the others. What did Sariel say to you? The truth, probably. Mira kept her voice low. That I'm temporary. That when this is over, I'm a loose end to be tied up. His hand found hers, ice-cold fingers threading through warm ones. No, you're not. The certainty in his voice was absolute. I made you a promise. I keep my promises. Even if your faction orders you to kill me. He pulled her closer, and she felt the war in him, visible in the way his veins darkened then. Lightened, shadows gathering, then retreating. Then I'll break protocol, break with my faction, become rogue if necessary. His voice dropped to a whisper only she could hear. You've become the line I won't cross. The choice I'll make every time, even if it costs me everything. Tears burned her eyes. That's insane. You'd give up your people, your purpose, for me. I'd give up anything for the first person in 200 years who makes me feel human. He pressed his forehead to hers, and she felt him trembling. You terrify me, Mira, because you've become more important than my mission, more important than my redemption, and I don't know what to do with that. We survived tonight. She squeezed his hand. We stop Webb. We save those kids. And then we figure out the rest. Together. Together. He repeated the word like a prayer. I'm holding you to that. Raphael's voice cut through the moment. It's time. Vehicles are ready. Mira, you're with me in command. Kane, Sariel, Azrael. Your breach team. Standard protocol. No survivors. Minimal evidence. Clean extraction. Mira rode in an unmarked van that looked ordinary from outside, but was filled with military-grade surveillance equipment inside. Raphael drove in silence while she set up her systems, hacking into Webb's compound from a distance, watching thermal signatures move through the building. He really would defy the faction for you. Raphael's voice startled her. I've known Kane for 80 years. Never seen him. Like this. It's dangerous for both of you. I know. Mira watched her screen as the 3 Nephilim approached the compound, thermal signatures appearing like ghosts. But some things are worth the danger. Maybe. Raphael's golden eyes reflected in the rearview mirror. Or maybe you're both about to learn that some choices cost more than you can pay. On screen, the breach began. The compound's lights died. Alarms shrieked, then fell silent. And Mira watched as shadows moved through the building, swift and merciless, hunting. Kane. She spoke into the comm. Southeast corner, 2 hostiles converging on your position. His voice crackled back, layered and dark. Copy. Engaging. The thermal signatures collided. 2 went down. 1 kept moving. She tracked him through the building, watched him fight with an efficiency that was both beautiful and terrifying. This was what he was. This was what he'd tried to warn her about. Then everything went wrong. Webb's voice came through on the compromised frequency, and Mira's blood turned to ice. I know you're watching, whoever you are, the woman from the security feed. So watch this. On screen, 4 new signatures appeared. Not at the compound, at a different location. The children's hospital. 3 blocks away. They were already inside. It's a trap. Mira's voice cracked. Kane, the hospital. He sent a team to the hospital. They're going to... I know. His voice was pure darkness now. Raphael, get her out of here. Sariel. Azrael, With me. Now. Negative. Raphael's voice was firm. Protocol says we complete primary objective first. Fuck protocol. The comm exploded with the sound of violence. Those are children. I'm going. And Mira watched on thermal imaging as Kane's signature broke away from the others, moving faster than should be possible, racing toward the hospital where innocent lives hung in the balance. Mira's fingers flew across the keyboard, hacking into the hospital's security system while Raphael drove like the laws of physics were optional. On screen, 4 thermal signatures moved through the pediatric ward with purpose. Kane's signature was still 2 blocks away, moving impossibly fast but not fast enough. I can seal the ward. Her voice shook. Lock them in, buy him time. Do it. Raphael's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. But understand, if those hunters have dead man switches, trapping them could trigger explosives. You might kill everyone you're trying to save. Her finger hovered over the enter key. 43 children in that ward according to patient records. 43 lives balanced against the chance that Webb had planned for this contingency. The same man who'd kept ashes in jars, who'd documented his kills with pride. She thought of her brother, alive because she'd been willing to cross lines. Thought of Kane, choosing mercy over vengeance because she'd asked him to. Thought of the binding at her wrist, pulsing with a heartbeat that wasn't quite hers. She pressed enter. The hospital's fire doors slammed shut, magnetic locks engaging. On thermal, the 4 hunters stopped, turned, converged on the sealed exits. One raised what looked like a radio. Mira's heart stopped. Then Kane's signature appeared. Not through the doors. Through the window. 5th floor. He'd climbed the exterior wall. What happened next? Mira would replay in her nightmares for years. Kane moved through the hunters like a force of nature, like something that had forgotten how to be anything but violence. His thermal signature would bloom, expand, as if darkness itself was manifesting. Where it touched the hunters, they dropped. Not dead, she realized with shock. Unconscious. He was keeping his promise even now. Even in this. But the 4th hunter was faster. Smarter. He grabbed a child. A little girl according to the medical chart Mira had pulled up. 8 years old. Leukemia patient. He pressed something sharp to her throat. Mira's comm crackled. Let me leave, demon. Or the girl dies. The hunter's voice was steady, faithful. He believed he was righteous. You care about these abominations more than your own mission. That makes you weak. Kane's voice came through, and it was wrong, layered with so many tones it hurt to hear. Put her down. Last warning. Or what? You'll kill me? Prove to everyone watching that you're the monster we say you are? The hunter laughed. Come on, demon. Show this child what you really are before I send her to God. On thermal, Mira watched Kane's signature pulse, expand, contract. The war inside him made visible through technology. She grabbed the comm. Kane, listen to me. You're not a monster. You're choosing. You're always choosing. Mira. His voice was barely human. I can't let him hurt her. But if I lose control, if the demon wins, I might hurt her myself. I'm too close to the edge. Then don't do it alone. She was already moving, shoving past Raphael's protests, out of the van, running, toward the hospital. I'm coming. Hold on. You can't. The anguish in his voice nearly stopped her. It's not safe. I'm not safe. I don't care. She was through the lobby, bypassing security with credentials she'd forged in 30 seconds, slamming through stairwell doors. You held on for me before. Now I hold on for you. She burst into the pediatric ward and froze. Kane stood 15 feet from the hunter, and he was barely recognizable. His veins had gone completely black, spreading across his skin like cracks in reality. His eyes were voids, empty of everything but rage. Shadows poured off him in waves, and where they touched, equipment failed, lights shattered, The temperature dropped so fast that frost crawled across the walls. The little girl in the hunter's arms was crying, and the sound seemed to hurt Cain physically. He flinched with each sob. "Cain." Mira moved toward him slowly, hands raised. The cold was brutal, stealing her breath. "Look at me. Not him. Me." His head turned, and when those void eyes fixed on her, she saw nothing human left. "Run. Please. I can't control it. The demon's won. I'm going to kill him, and I won't stop there. I'll kill everyone. Run." "No." She kept moving, even as every instinct screamed at her to flee. "You're still in there. I know you are. You promised me you'd choose. So choose now. Choose control. Choose mercy. Choose me." "I can't." The words were layered with 3 voices, all of them breaking. "I've held on too long. Used too much power. The demon side wants blood, and it's stronger than I am." The hunter laughed. "Listen to it, woman. It's telling you the truth. They're all monsters. Every single one. And you're a fool for believing otherwise." Mira reached Cain, placed her hand on his chest where his heart beat too slow. The cold was agony, burning like fire. His skin was ice beneath her palm, and she felt the war inside him, violent and desperate. "You're not a monster. You're someone who's fought his nature every day for 200 years. You're someone who took a blessed silver blade meant for me. You're someone who kept his promise even when it cost you everything." "Mira." Her name came out like a prayer and a warning. "I'm losing. The darkness is too strong." "Then use the light." She pressed harder, wishing she could reach through his skin to the angel part of him that she knew was still fighting. "Your father tried to burn the demon out of you. But what if that was wrong? What if the answer isn't choosing one or the other? What if it's both? Angel and demon, light and dark, balanced. What if that's what makes you stronger than either alone?" Something flickered in his eyes. Not amber. Gold. Pure. Bright. Burning gold. "That's it." Her voice broke. "I see you. The real you. Not monster or saint. Just Cain. Just the man who's choosing every second to be better than his nature demands." The hunter made his mistake then. Seeing Cain distracted, he pressed the blade harder. The little girl screamed. Blood appeared on her throat. Cain moved. But this time it was different. The shadows that exploded from him were threaded with gold light, darkness and brightness woven together like opposing forces that had finally agreed to coexist. He appeared beside the hunter, pulled the child free with impossible gentleness, and touched the man's forehead with 2 fingers. The hunter collapsed. Not dead. Mira could see him breathing, but his eyes had gone blank, empty. "What did you do?" She took the crying child from Cain's arms, checked her wound. Superficial, already clotting. Removed his conviction. Cain's voice was singular again, exhausted. His absolute certainty that killing was righteous. He'll wake up remembering everything he's done, but without the faith that justified it. The guilt will destroy him more completely than death ever could. It was cruel. It was mercy. It was perfectly Cain. Raphael appeared in the doorway with Sariel and Azrael, all of them. Stopping short at the scene. Cain, barely standing, veins still dark, but fading. Mira, holding a traumatized child, covered in frost. 4 unconscious hunters. "You used dual manifestation." Sariel's voice was awed and horrified. "Angel and demon simultaneously. That's not possible. The conflict should have torn you apart." It almost did. Cain looked at Mira, and his eyes were amber again, threaded with gold that hadn't been there before. She anchored me, kept me whole when I should have. Shattered. Azrael stepped forward, studied Cain with new wariness. "You've bonded with her. Not just emotionally, metaphysically. I can see it. The connection between you is visible in the ether. That's not permitted. The council can try to separate us." Kane's voice was quiet, but absolute. But they'll fail. Because I choose her. I'll choose her every time. And if that makes me rogue, if that makes me outcast, then that's what I become. Sariel's expression was unreadable. You understand what you're declaring? You're choosing a human with a mortal lifespan over your faction. Over centuries of purpose. She'll die, Kane. In 50, 60 years if she's lucky. And you'll live on for millennia. What then? Then I'll have had 50 or 60 years of being more than a weapon. He moved to Mira, took her hand despite the others watching. That's more than I've had in 2 centuries. Raphael's comm crackled. Webb's compound team reporting. Primary objective complete. 7 confirmed eliminations. The cleansing is stopped. He looked at the unconscious hunters. What do we do with these 4? Leave them. Kane's voice was firm. They'll wake, face human justice for what they planned. The girls' testimony, the evidence of their weapons, the hospital security footage. They'll spend their lives in prison, living with what they almost did. That's not protocol. Azrael's voice was sharp. Loose ends. They know we exist. They know monsters exist. Kane corrected. They don't know what we are, where we come from, our hierarchies. Their testimony will sound like delusion. And I'm done killing unless there's no other choice. He looked at Mira, and something soft and devastating crossed his features. She asked me to choose, so I'm choosing mercy. Every time, even when it's harder. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police, ambulances, responding to the panic alarms Mira had triggered. They needed to leave. In the van, Mira sat beside Kane, watching. His veins slowly returned to normal, the black fading to leave only faint traces like old scars. His hand found hers, and the binding between them pulsed stronger than before. You saved me tonight. His voice was raw. In every way a person can be saved. You saved yourself. She squeezed his hand. I just reminded you that you could. Raphael glanced at them in the rearview mirror. The council will call for evaluation. Your bond with her, the dual manifestation, the protocol breaches. They'll want answers. Let them. Kane's jaw was set. I'll face whatever comes. But I won't give her up. Not for them. Not for anyone. Sariel, in the passenger seat, turned to look at them. This is going to cause war within the faction. Some will see your bond as evolution, others as contamination. You're forcing us all to choose sides. Good. Kane's eyes met hers, and Mira saw the Nephilim who'd spent centuries alone, who'd finally found something worth fighting for beyond duty. Maybe it's time. We all examined what we've become. Whether following protocol blindly makes us righteous, or just obedient. The words hung in the air as they drove through the night, away from the hospital, away from the compound, toward an uncertain future where everything had changed. The faction council convened 3 days later in a warehouse that existed in no city records, accessed through doors that led nowhere on any map. Mira stood beside Kane in a circle of 12 Nephilim, their combined presence, dropping the temperature to near freezing, their eyes ranging from gold to silver to absolute black, all fixed on her with varying degrees of hostility. The eldest, a woman whose eyes held centuries of weariness, spoke first. Mira Dunn, human, criminal, security risk. Each word landed like a gavel strike. You have seen our world, participated in our operations, formed an unauthorized bond with one of our enforcers. Standard protocol demands your immediate elimination. Kane's hand found hers, ice cold and steady. Then you'll have to eliminate me first. The room erupted. Voices layered over each other, too many tones, creating a cacophony that made Mira's ears ring. She caught fragments. Contamination. Treason. 2 centuries of service thrown away. Unprecedented. Enough. The eldest's voice cut through the chaos. Kane, you were one of our best. Disciplined. Controlled. What changed? She did. He looked at Mira, and his eyes were that amber-gold combination that had become permanent since the hospital. She saw me as a person making choices, not a weapon following orders. She asked me to be better than my nature, and then believed I could be. That changes everything. She's human. Another council member, male, with eyes like ice. Mortal, fragile. In 60 years she'll be dead, and you'll have centuries of existence ahead of you, alone again. This attachment is temporary by definition. All attachments are temporary. Kane's voice was quiet but firm. That doesn't make them meaningless. If anything, it makes them more precious. She has 60 years. I want to spend them beside her, and when they're over, his voice cracked slightly, then I'll spend the rest of my existence grateful I had them at all. Sariel stepped forward from where she'd been watching. I witnessed the dual manifestation, angel and demon, operating in concert instead of conflict. That shouldn't be possible. The opposing forces should tear a Nephilim apart. She looked at Mira with something approaching respect. But she anchored him, held him together when he should have fragmented. That's not just emotional attachment. That's a stabilizing force we don't understand. Or it's proof that humans make us weak. Azrael's voice dripped contempt. He broke protocol repeatedly, chose her safety over mission parameters, nearly lost control completely, all because of attachment. I never lost control. Kane's voice had gone dangerous. I chose control. There's a difference. For 200 years, I've suppressed both halves of my nature, trying to be neither angel nor demon. She taught me I could be both, that the conflict isn't weakness, it's potential. The eldest studied them with ancient eyes. The bond between you is visible to those who know how to look. Metaphysical connection, formed through what? Shared trauma, proximity, conscious choice? All three. Mira spoke for the first time, her voice steadier than she felt. I chose to trust him when everything said I shouldn't. He chose to protect me when protocol said he shouldn't. We chose each other, repeatedly, until those choices became something neither of us can walk away from. Pretty words. The ice-eyed council member moved closer. But they don't address the security risk. You know we exist. You know our organization, our capabilities. What happens when you're angry with him? When the relationship ends? Do you sell our secrets? Expose us out of spite? I could have done that. Already. Mira held his gaze. I had the codex files, had evidence, could have gone public a dozen times, but I didn't. Because I understand what you're protecting. The balance between your world and mine. I'm not a threat to that. You say that now. The council member smiled coldly. But humans are emotional. Unpredictable. You'll age while he doesn't. Grow bitter. Resentful. 40 years from now when you're old and he's unchanged. Will you still protect our secrets? Kane moved between them. 40 years from now, I'll make sure she has every reason to. And if she does expose us, then we deserve it. Because it means we failed to honor the choice she made to stand with us instead of against us. Raphael stepped forward. I vote to allow it. The bond, the relationship, all of it. We've followed protocol blindly for centuries, eliminating any human who sees too much, any Nephilim who shows attachment. And what has it gotten us? Isolation. Stagnation. Maybe it's time we evolve. Evolve or contaminate. Another council member, female, with shadows pooling at her feet. Once we allow one human attachment, where does it end? Do we all start forming bonds? Exposing ourselves? We exist in secret because that's how we survive. We exist in secret because we're afraid. Mira's voice cut through, sharp and clear. Afraid of being hunted like Webb hunted you. But hiding forever isn't living. It's just existing. Kane taught me that. He's been hiding from himself for 200 years. And he's miserable. The moment he stopped hiding, stopped suppressing, he became more powerful. Dual manifestation. Angel and demon working together. That's not weakness. That's evolution. Silence. The 12 council members exchanged glances, weighted with centuries of history, of loss, of fear carefully cultivated into protocol. The eldest spoke. We will vote. Those in favor of allowing Cain's bond with the human, understanding it sets precedent that may reshape our faction. Raise your hand. Raphael's hand rose immediately. Then Sariel's, slowly, conflicted. 3 others followed, including one Mira hadn't heard speak. 6 total. Those opposed, 5 hands. The ice-eyed council member, Azrael, and 3 others who looked at Mira like she was a disease. 1 abstention. The eldest looked at them, and Mira couldn't read her expression. The vote fails. Precedent requires 2/3 majority for protocol changes. 6 of 12 is exactly half. Cain's hand tightened on Mira's. She felt his despair through the binding, cold and absolute. However, the eldest continued, the vote to eliminate the human also fails. Same numbers, inverse, which leaves us at an impasse. She stepped down from her position, approached them directly. I abstained because I wanted to see how the faction would divide. And now I know. We're split. Half clinging to old ways, half willing to evolve. That split will tear us apart if forced. She stopped in front of Mira. So here is my compromise. You may live, human. The bond may continue. But you are exiled from our protection. If hunters find you, if other supernatural entities target you, we will not intervene. You exist outside our laws, outside our safety. You are, effectively, alone, except for Cain. And Cain? His voice was carefully neutral. Remains part of the faction, continues his duties, but understands that his attachment to her is his weakness to manage. We will not accommodate it. Missions that conflict with her safety, he participates anyway. Choices between faction and human, he makes them knowing we expect loyalty to us. She paused. And if she betrays us, he eliminates her personally. Those are the terms. Cain pulled Mira behind him. No, I won't agree to terms that require her death under any circumstance. Then you're rogue, exiled, stripped of faction resources, protection, purpose. The eldest's voice was not unkind. You'll be alone, Cain. Truly alone for the first time in 2 centuries. No backup, no safe houses, no support network, just you and her against everything. Is she worth that? He didn't hesitate. Yes. The word hung in the frozen air, absolute and irreversible. Mira felt tears burn her eyes. He was giving up everything. Centuries of purpose, of belonging, of the only family he'd known. For her, for 60 mortal years that would pass like a breath for him. Cain. She touched his arm. You don't have to. I do. He turned to her, and his eyes were gold. Pure angel light she'd never seen before. You asked me to choose. I'm choosing. You. Always you. Everything else is just details. The eldest watched them with an expression Mira couldn't decipher. So be it. Cain. You are no longer recognized as faction. Your access to our resources is revoked. Your protection is removed. You exist outside our laws. She paused. But understand this. If you should ever need us, if the isolation becomes too much, if you wish to return, the door remains open. Provided she is gone, then the door stays closed. Cain's voice was firm. Because she's not going anywhere. They left together, walking out of the warehouse into daylight that felt different somehow. Brighter. More real. Mira should have felt guilty. He'd sacrificed everything. But when she looked at him, saw the way the tension had left his shoulders, the way he moved with less weight, she realized something. You're free. The words came out wondering. For the first time in 200 years, you're actually free. He stopped, looked at her, and smiled. Really smiled, wide and genuine and devastating. I am. No more protocols. No more duty. No more suppressing parts of myself to fit their expectations. He pulled her close, and the cold of him felt like coming home. Just me, and you, and whatever we choose to make of it. They'll come for me eventually. Mira's voice was quiet. Other hunters. Things worse than Webb. I'm not protected anymore. Neither am I. He kissed her. Forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. Cold meeting warm. We'll protect each other. Build something new. Something that doesn't require either of us to hide. 3 months later, they lived in a cabin 2 hours from the city, surrounded by wards Kane had carved into every surface. Mira worked remotely, hacking for private clients who paid well and asked no questions. Kane hunted when necessary, stopped threats when they arose, but on his terms now, choosing mercy over violence, balance over suppression. Her brother visited once, looked at Kane with wide eyes, and later pulled her aside. He's not human. I can feel it. Something's wrong with him. Everything's wrong with him. Mira smiled, watching Kane try to cook dinner in a kitchen he barely understood. That's why I love him. At night, she traced the veins in his arms, black and gold threaded together like opposing forces that had finally made peace. He told her stories of 200 years, of regrets and choices, of the father who'd tried to burn away half his nature, and how he'd finally learned to embrace it instead. Do you regret it? She asked one night, lying in darkness, his too cold body wrapped around her too warm one. Giving up the faction? The purpose? Every day. His honesty no longer surprised her. And then I wake up next to you, and I remember what I gained. Peace. Choice. The freedom to be completely myself without apology. He kissed her shoulder. 60 years with you is worth 1,000. Alone. I'll take that trade every time. She turned to face him, saw her reflection in eyes that shifted constantly between amber and gold, demon and angel, darkness and light in perfect balance. I love you, all of you. The parts that terrify me and the parts that amaze me and the parts you're still learning to accept. I know. His smile was soft. I can taste it. Every time you look at me. Tastes like hope. Outside, the wind carried the scent of winter coming. Inside, they built warmth from nothing. Two impossible beings who'd chosen each other against all logic, all protocol, all reason. And in that choice, found something neither had dared imagine. Freedom. Purpose. Home. Together. In the end, Kane didn't just choose Mira. He chose himself. The version of himself he'd been too afraid to become for 200 years. The one who didn't suppress half his nature to fit someone else's definition of acceptable. The one who understood that true strength isn't choosing light over darkness, but learning to hold both without being consumed by either. And Mira? She proved that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand beside someone the world calls a monster and say, I see who you really are. But here's the question that haunts long after the story ends. What would you sacrifice for someone who saw past your worst parts to the person you're struggling to become? Would you give up your purpose, your community, everything you've built for 60 mortal years with someone who makes you feel human? And perhaps more importantly, would you have the courage to let someone love you, knowing they're trading their entire world for the privilege? This story isn't just about a hacker and a Nephilim. It's about the price of authenticity, about choosing connection over safety, vulnerability over protocol, love over the comfortable isolation we build to protect ourselves from being hurt. It's about recognizing that the people who challenge us, who refuse to let us hide from ourselves, who anchor us when we're fragmenting, those are the ones worth risking everything for. Because at the end of our lives, we won't remember the protocols we followed or the rules we obeyed. We'll remember the moments we chose to be fully, terrifyingly, beautifully ourselves with someone who loved us not despite our darkness, but including it. If this story moved you, if it made you question what you'd sacrifice for authentic connection, if it reminded you that being human means embracing contradiction, light and shadow, fear and courage all at once, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button if you believe love is worth the risk. Subscribe if you want more stories that challenge you to choose courage over comfort. And leave a comment telling me, would you have chosen the way Cain did? Or would you have played it safe? Because your answer reveals more about you than you might think. Thank you for experiencing this journey with me. Until the next story, remember, you always have a choice. Choose bravely.